What's up everyone, welcome to your first tutorial in Photoshop. In these tutorials I'm going to be teaching you every single thing that you wanted to know about Photoshop. I'm going to be starting with the very basics, and I'm going to be moving into some very advanced topics. I'm going to try to give you as much detail as I can in these tutorials and tell you everything you need to know. So before we get started in Photoshop, before we get started working everything, let's just get to know our way around Photoshop. So we have it open right now, and as you can see, to the left side of the screen right here, these are all the tools, and this is what we're going to be learning today. And you can either view them as a single row, or if you click this little two triangles right here, you can view them as a double row. At the top of your screen right here, you have the menu bar. Now this is just like any other menu bar in any other program. You have all your basic functions like save, open, new, copy, paste, as well as some other more advanced ones. We'll get into that more later. To the right side of the screen, you have what is called the palettes. Now this is what makes Photoshop different than any other image editing program. These are for the more advanced topics, and we'll get into these later on in the tutorials. And in the middle, of course, you have the image window. This is for the space for whatever image you're working on. And right now I opened up this image right here just to display what all the tools will do. So let's start. The first tool that we need is called the Move tool. It's the very first tool, and if we click it, we can see what it does. The Move tool does exactly like the name says. You can grab part. Now the next tool is called the Marquee tool. Now anytime there's a little triangle next to the tool, it means that there's other tools along with it. To get to these tools, just highlight over your tool, click it, hold down, and you can see the rest of your tools. Now this one has an elliptical marquee and two other ones with it. But here's what the Marquee tool does. On your image you can click and drag, and you now have a piece of your image you have selected. And there's a lot of different things you can do. You can paint inside this piece, or you can pick it up and move. And the elliptical marquee does the same exact thing, except it's a circle shape instead of a square or a rectangle. The next tool we have is called the Lasso tool. You can either click it or just click L, and this will take you to the Lasso tool. Now the Lasso tool is a lot like the Marquee tool in that you can make selections with it. So if you want to just make a freehand selection by scrolling around a piece of your image and letting go, you now have a selection that you can either paint inside or move, or just move around. Since we know how to move, that's the only thing we know how to do right now. And you also have a polygonal lasso tool. And what this does is the exact same thing, make selections, but it makes it in the shape of a polygon. So as you can see, we now have a selection in the shape of a polygon that we can move around. And the last tool is called the Magnetic Lasso tool. What this does is attach to any similar colors and keep on that selection as long as you keep your mouse over. Now make sure you don't stray to the side, or it'll pick up on some colors that you don't want. But for the most part, we don't really use that tool to make selections. We use some of the other ones. Now the next tool you're going to use is called the Quick Selection tool. Again, this is one other tool to make a selection. Say you wanted to select all this canyon right here, or this arc, whatever it is. So you would pick the quick selection tool and copy all the similar colors. And now from here, you can do many things with it, such as move. Like I said, it's the only thing we need to know how to do. So the other tool in that section is called the magic wand tool, and it's much like the same, just picks the same colors that are related to that color and selects all the similar colors. Now the next tool on our toolbar is called the crop, and just like the name implies, if you want to crop your image and don't want the entire thing, then all you have to do is highlight, drag over whatever part of the image you want, and let go, and you now can crop your image. You can vary the size, vary the height and width, or you can even rotate it. And then when you're ready to crop, just press enter, and there you have your new image. And this last tool in this section is called the slice tool. That's for making web design programs, and we won't really talk about that as we're beginning. But that's all the time we have for right now. In the next topic, we'll cover the rest of the tools. And if you're not already there, you can go to www.thenewboston.com to see my tutorials and to go over everything that we went over today, and I'll also give you step-by-step instructions. Thank you. What's up everyone, welcome to the second tutorial in Photoshop. Today we're going to be covering the more basic tools. Last time we left off with the slice tool, so let's start now with the spot healing brush tool. There are three main sections of this: the spot healing brush, the healing brush, and the patch tool. The spot healing brush is for anything that you want to go over in the image that doesn't really belong in the image. So say you want to get rid of this, just paint over it and it would disappear. It's not really useful for big images like this, but when you have an old image with a scratch on it or some dust, it's really useful. The healing brush tool is to recreate a section of your image. So say you wanted to recreate this rock, just hold down the Alt tab and you'll see little crosshairs. Click once, and then once you go to another section of your image, you can simply just paint and it will recreate. And the patch tool is just for larger sections, just like the same as the healing brushes. And the red eye tool is just like it says, you paint over it to fix red eyes in photographs. The brush tool is one of the most basic tools. As you can see, you select it and you just paint just like a normal brush. And the pencil tool right here is very similar, except it gives you very hard and jagged edges, a lot more harsh than the brush. And the color replacement tool, you select a color from down here and you paint over your image and it paints the shade of color. As you can see, it's turning everything a shade of green right now. And these tools are called the stamp tool and the pattern stamp tool. The clone stamp tool is a lot like the healing brush. To copy a section of your image, just hold down the Alt tab, click, and as you see, you can paint again that section of the image anywhere else on your photograph. The pattern stamp tool allows you to go up, make a selection of a pattern. So we'll select the bubbles, and as you see, if you go down, paint, it begins painting that texture or pattern on your photograph. The history brush tool allows you to paint. So say you would make a line, and if you painted over it, it painted the history of whatever your last action was. So if you painted a line and then painted it with a history tool, it would delete whatever section of that line you painted over. And the art history brush is not very useful, so we'll cover that at another time. The eraser tool erases whatever section of the image. Very simple. And the background eraser tool erases the background. And since we only have one layer right here, you can see that it's doing the same thing, but once you have multiple layers, and we'll talk about that later on, it's pretty useful. And right here we have the gradient tool and the paint bucket tool. The gradient tool allows you to pick two colors down here, a main color and a foreground color, and go over your image, and as you can see, it gradually fades from one color to the next. Now the paint bucket tool is different. Say we have an entirely new layer, which we'll talk about later, and paint this. It allows you to paint solid colors, and this color is the color of your main color right here. And these tools are called the blur tool, the sharpen tool, and the smudge tool. The blur tool, whatever you paint over, it blurs a section of your image. The sharpen tool sharpens the section, and the smudge tool I'll show you right now. Let's get rid of this layer we just made. So say we wanted to smudge this. Just select your smudge tool, and as you can see, that portion of the image is smudging. These tools is the dodge tool, and what the dodge tool does is lighten any pixels that you paint over. The burn tool does just the opposite. Whatever pixels you're painting over, it darkens those pixels of a similar color. And the sponge tool just saturates the colors. So whatever colors you're painting over with a sponge tool, it just brings out more of the natural colors. This is called the pen tool, and it's a whole nother tool on its own, so we'll talk about that later. The text tool does exactly like you think. If you click it, you can type text either from left to right or up and down. These arrows are for the pen tool, so we'll talk about those later. The rectangle tool and the other shape tools are just like they sound. If you select the rectangle tool, you can of course make a rectangle on your image. Just basic shapes. And then we have this custom shape tool down here. And as you see, if you go up here, you can select from a wide range of custom shapes. And then you could simply drag, and now you would have whatever shape you selected on your image. Right here is called the note tool. It's for taking notes. If you wanted to remind yourself, you can either take it by text or audio if you have a microphone. This tool is called the eyedropper tool and is very useful. Say you wanted to paint this color with blue, but you couldn't find it anywhere. Just select it with the eyedropper tool, just press click, and as you can see on your colors palette, it now changed to blue. So you can now select your brush and paint with that blue color. And this hand tool we'll talk about later. The zoom tool is one of the most useful tools we have. To zoom out, you click this tool up here, and to zoom in, you click the plus tool. So say we wanted to zoom in, just click zoom in, and now we could zoom in. You could also hold down Control on your keyboard, press minus to zoom out, or plus to zoom in. And clicking this right here will take you to the default colors, black and white. And if you want to toggle in between them, you can click this. And to select the main color, just double click this box right here, and now you can select from a range of colors, and then press OK to verify it. And this mask tool we'll talk about later on, and this tool right here is just for changing how you want to view. So say if you want to view a standard, or I'll be working with maximize screen mode. And that's all the time we have for right now, but in the next section we're going to be talking about the menu bars. And if you're not already there, you can go to www.thenewboston.com and I'll cover everything I went over today. Thanks.